Here's what we're talking about today. New strikes by Ukrainian drones on Russian oil facilities. Deputy Chairman of Russia's Security Council, Dmitry Medvedev, threatens France with a nuclear strike. Ramzan Kadyrov is experiencing a serious worsening of his illness following a Ukrainian strike at the very heart of Chechnya. An assassination attempt on Volodymyr Zelensky and damage to the protective sarcophagus at the Chornobyl Nuclear Power Plant. All this and more in the program Ukraine Today. Hello, my name is Fedor Shylenko, and this is Ukraine Today. Please subscribe, like, comment, and let's get to the news. A new day, a new package of Ukrainian sanctions against the Russian oil industry. Overnight, Russia was attacked by more than 100 drones. In Ryazan, a major fire broke out again at the oil refinery. Local residents heard explosions and the governor confirmed the fire. This is already the 9th attack on this oil refinery this year. The Ryazan oil refinery, with a design capacity of over 17 million tons of oil per year, is among the largest refineries in Russia. The occupiers have lost an expensive air defense system. In the Zaporizhzhia direction, fighters from the GOR Special Unit Primary destroyed a Russian Bukom-3 surface-to-air missile system. What is happening on the front lines and around them at this very moment is covered in our report.
The defense forces have turned the tide near Kupiansk. They have pushed the Russian occupation army back to the northern outskirts of the city and created a kill zone around the settlement. This was stated by Viktor Trehubov, head of the Communications Directorate of the Joint Forces grouping. Despite Putin's tales about his army capturing Kupiansk, the situation for the Russians on this front is only getting worse. Thanks to the work of our drones, the Ukrainian armed forces have managed to completely cut off.
We are specifically targeting the enemy's crucial and extensive supply routes, which are vital arteries for their military operations. These logistical pathways are responsible for transporting essential provisions, ammunition, and reinforcements across challenging terrain, directly impacting their ability to sustain prolonged engagements. Disrupting these critical lines of communication and resupply would severely cripple their operational capacity and strategic advantage in the region. The approaching hostile enemy?
Meanwhile, the situation in Pokrovsk remains difficult for now. The occupiers are trying to break through the defenses and outflank the city. However, the defense forces are actively destroying the enemy and not allowing them to build up their strength. This was reported by Yevhen Losichuk, commander of the 7th Rapid Response Corps of the Air Assault Forces. The military notes that enemy units are constantly advancing, trying to seize the city and improve their tactical position. At the same time, the notional line of demarcation there still runs along the railway, while the northern part of the settlement is fully controlled by the Ukrainian armed forces.
Our forces have primarily focused on holding the northern part of the city in order to maintain a corridor from Mirnohrid. Mirnohrid serves as a kind of outpost in the east, in case the situation there becomes more complicated. These divisions are obvious. The commander's decision must be made. The Western forces must retreat, strengthening the flanks of the defense. Pokrovsk
While some units of the defense forces are fighting bravely along the demarcation line, others are not forgetting to strike at the Russian rear. For example, the day before, GOR fighters made their mark by striking the Kacha military airfield in Crimea. They managed to destroy a MiG-29 fighter jet as well as the Irtysh airfield radar complex near temporarily occupied Simferopol.
It seems Ukraine has found a winning formula for striking Crimea using heavy FP2 drones, which, despite having an increased warhead weight of over 100 kilograms, are capable of reaching any point in the occupied territory where Starlink is operating, making it extremely difficult to suppress these drones with electronic warfare systems. So we can expect new footage from Primar soon.
Last night, the Russian oil industry also came under attack. In the Krasnodar region, local residents report hearing about 5 explosions near the city of Temryuk. Later, videos of the aftermath of these strikes appeared online. It became known that the largest port terminal in Temryuk was hit. Apparently, the strike targeted a gas storage tank.
The Temryuk port and the Syzran oil refinery have been blown up. And while this refinery has been hit before, as for the Temryuk port, well, basically not. Certainly not this year. Temryuk is an important logistical hub in the Sea of Azov for the Russian terrorist locusts. Essentially, it is a key export hub on Russia's southern coast. Located on the Taman Peninsula on the coast of the Sea of Azov, it holds strategic importance both for Russian logistics in general and for servicing external shipments, including those related to energy, agricultural products, and very importantly, military cargo.
To be honest, it is precisely from here that the Russians have been transferring reserves of fuel and weapons to the Russian Federation's group, which has become more active in southern Ukraine in recent days. The beaten and humiliated just can't get enough. Putin's court jester, also known as the deputy chairman of the Security Council of the Russian Federation, Dmitry Medvedev, has once again started talking about nukes. Let me remind you, the last time the former president of the Russian Federation brought up nuclear weapons, Donald Trump sent American submarines to the shores of Russia. Today, apparently fearing the US president, Medvedev is threatening only France. Earlier, information appeared in the media that, in a private conversation, the president of France warned the president of Ukraine about a possible betrayal by the United States. Medvedev did not remain silent.
There is a chance that the US will betray Ukraine, Macron said in a leaked conversation that supposedly took place among degenerate European Russophobes. December 1st. Maybe it's time to send a couple of the world's best submarines to the shores of France?
They tried to kill Zelensky. The Ukrainian president narrowly escaped attack. Drones. As Volodymyr Zelensky's plane departed Ireland, 4 large drones were heading towards Dublin Airport. The publication reports this. All details below.
Drone attack on presidential plane near Dublin Airport. On December 4th, the Irish publication The Journal reported that late in the evening on December 1st, 4 unidentified military-type drones violated the no-fly zone and flew over the sea toward the flight path of the plane carrying Volodymyr and Elena. Zelensky?
This brings up the question that Europe needs to realize that war is not just happening somewhere far away. The war is already in Europe, directly in the countries of the European Union. And the attack on airspace, the restriction of European countries in using their own airspace because it could be blocked by Russian drones, this is a reminder that we must not rule out, among other things, the possibility of seeking a military response. To the Russian reaction?
The President and First Lady of Ukraine arrived in Ireland on the night of December 2nd. They were met by Prime Minister Mikhail Martin. The plane landed just a few minutes before the incident, although the drones did reach the area where the Ukrainian commander-in-chief was supposed to fly through. Then the UAVs flew toward an Irish Navy vessel which had been secretly deployed at sea for the Ukrainian president's visit. Irish security services consider what happened to be a hybrid attack. An investigation is currently underway.
At the moment, it seems to me that what the Russian special services wanted to demonstrate was their capabilities, including, let's say, the potential elimination of Zelensky on the territory of the European Union, to show that they can do it. In other words, it's a very psychological move, a demonstration that we can do it, and that's that.
On Friday, December 5th, the meeting between representatives of the US and Ukraine concluded. At this meeting, the Ukrainian delegation, led by National Security and Defense Council Secretary Rustem Umerov, sought to find out exactly what issues the American intermediaries Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner discussed with the Russian dictator Vladimir Putin at their recent meeting in Moscow.
The US is playing a game here where essentially they are trying to protect the aggressor. At the same time, it is necessary to constantly remind the US at all such meetings, like in Miami and elsewhere, that, guys, there is such a thing as international law. There is also the concept of internal American law. There is a law passed in 2017 stating that America will never recognize any territories annexed by Russia from Ukraine. So when you say that you recognize Crimea, you are violating your own legislation.
Nevertheless, the national security strategy published by the White House declares that friendship with Russia is a priority for the US.
Any action that voters strongly dislike will lead to their defeat in the elections. Let me remind you, there is less than a year left until the US elections. On November 2nd, 2026, there will be elections for the House of Representatives and 3 more for the Senate. And here, first and foremost, it's the Republican politicians who understand that the recent, let's put it this way, drawing an analogy with Ukraine, the local elections on November 4th, 2000 showed a complete victory for the Democrats. Not because the Democrats are so good, but because it was a classic protest vote.
US Vice President J.D. Vance believes that in the near future we can expect good news regarding the resolution of the war between Russia and Ukraine. According to Vance, at this point, the US has already made progress on this issue, but has not yet reached the finish line.
America is constantly making concessions to Russia. Vitov comes, listens to me, and they tell the Russians that we're ready to go, we're ready to recognize this part of Donbass, we're ready to recognize Crimea, and so on and so forth. And instead of saying, okay, great, we need this, the Russians say, oh, listen, can you also do this, and can you do that as well? And these concessions to the aggressor lead to the aggressor's appetite growing. I think that's the short version, plus or minus.
The Wall Street Journal, citing its sources, writes that European leaders are advising President Zelensky not to agree to Russia's demands without security guarantees from the United States. According to Spiegel, during the conversation, European leaders expressed concerns that the US might betray Ukraine on the issue of territory without providing clarity on security guarantees.
Ukrainian drones struck Ramzan Kadyrov's headquarters. It took the hit. Grozny city. It houses the so-called Security Council of Chechnya and other regional administrative offices of the Republic. It's amusing that this happened after the still-dying Don promised to bring Europe to its knees. We'll tell you more about how Ukrainian birds are taking their revenge. In the
recent months, Chechnya has become the epicenter of tension amid increased intensity of Ukrainian drone attacks. Airports in the North Caucasus have suspended operations. A drone strike was recorded in the area of the skyscraper in Grozny city on Kadyrov Avenue. One of the high-rises sustained damage. The video shows that at least 10 floors were affected. A day before this, Kadyrov declared that he was ready to go to war with Europe at any moment and promised to force it to apologize.
We definitely won't stand on ceremony, Vladimir Vladimirovich. We're waiting for the order. It will all be over very quickly, and definitely not in favor of those who decided to start a war with Russia. I have one question. Vladimir Vladimirovich, if this all starts, you won't be upset with us if they immediately start apologizing voluntarily, will you?
It's noteworthy that the high-rise district is located just 800 meters from Kadyrov's residence. His administration was seriously frightened because Don might not have survived this blow given his serious health problems.
Grozny and Grozny city are symbols of the Kadyrov regime and, as I understand it, the main achievement of the Kadyrov regime.
The damaged buildings of Grozny city house the offices of several government bodies of Chechnya.
In particular, according to mapping services, the building houses the Chechen Ministry of Tourism, the Regional Department for Relations with Religious and Public Organizations, the Regional Office of the Ministry of Justice, the Chechen Security Council, the Republic's Audit Chamber, the local Ombudsman's Reception Office, the United Russia Party's Reception Office, and the Regional Election Commission.
The main target of the attack may have been the FSB building, which is located nearby. But Russian electronic warfare made its own adjustments.
This is not a strike against the civilian population. This is a strike against government authorities, which is absolutely legitimate and absolutely lawful.
This is already the second strike on the region in a week. Earlier, UAV struck the FSB building in Achkoy Martan and the Interior Ministry office in Gudermes. Chechnya had not been subjected to attacks by the Ukrainian armed forces since December of last year. At that time, the Rosgvardia barracks came under attack.
These are merely strikes against Chechen governmental security personnel, and they often act as a coercive force against Russians themselves to make them fight. And in order to significantly distract them, we strike at them.
Ukrainian defenders continue to fight the occupiers, destroying their weapons behind enemy lines. This time, as preparations were underway to launch Shaheds from Milerovo in the Rostov region, several Ukrainian drones struck the UAV launch platforms.
This was one of 6 locations from which the Shaheds were being launched. Milerovo remains a major hub, a large base for storing Shaheds and launching strikes. Only now, these sites have become permanent facilities from which up to 100 Shaheds can be launched in a single night. 100 Shaheds is a lot.
Milerovo is an important road and rail junction. From Milerovo to the line of contact is more than 150 kilometers. From here, Russia launches Shaheds at Ukraine almost every night. She'll be there. Hello. Look, something white is flying. There it is. Oh, Mama. After successful attacks by Ukrainian defenders on Russian airfields, this year new air defense positions appeared at the Milerovo air base, which were not there in 2024. Hangars were built on the sites where planes used to be parked in the open.
Naturally, we pay special attention to this facility, which is a major base for Shaheds. Shaheds have now become one of the three main threats for us. They are one of our main means of being attacked. These are Shaheds, guided bombs, and ballistic missiles. These three components, if we learn how to fight them and counteract them, life will become much better for us.
Foreign agencies are reporting record levels of drone attacks on Russian regions. In November, the number of drones launched from Ukraine increased. This is also confirmed by official data from the Russian Ministry of Defense. As for Ukraine, it continues to fight against the occupiers.
Before the drones could even reach Chechnya, the media began reporting that Ramzan Kadyrov was on his deathbed. The Chechen dictator is experiencing a serious worsening of his illness. According to Russian media, due to his health condition, Kadyrov has refused to hold his annual live Q&A session.
According to their information, Kadyrov is currently on IV drips and the live Q&A session is being postponed until he recovers. For several weeks now, local channels have been publishing similar announcements about large-scale preparations for the live session, but they have not named a date for the event.
The Chernobyl sarcophagus has been damaged. Following an IAEA inspection, it was determined that the sarcophagus covering the damaged fourth reactor of the Chornobyl Nuclear Power Plant can no longer fulfill its safety functions after being damaged by a drone. In February 2025, Volodymyr Zelensky reported that a Russian drone struck the protective dome, which led to significant damage. At the same time, the radiation levels around the plant reportedly remained at a normal level. The harsh reality, Russian style. Against the backdrop of former convicts returning from the war in Ukraine, the number of serious crimes committed by organized criminal groups in Russia has increased by a third over the past year. According to government statistics, in the first 6 months of 2025, 333,251 serious crimes were registered in Russia, and especially serious crimes. This is the highest figure in the last 15 years and 10.4% higher than the previous year. We'll tell you more in the report.
In the first 10 months of 2025, about 44,000 serious crimes committed by organized groups were registered in Russia. That's an increase of almost a third.
I think, yes, the time of heroes has come, and that's wonderful.
The true, genuine elite are all those who serve Russia. Workers and warriors.
In fact, it's an impressive achievement. The background of the growth is well known. The return of combatants, including those who before the war spent time in, to put it mildly, not so distant places.
All of us were already marked on the shore, so to speak, as if returning to society and returning from the special military operation zone is undesirable.
However, terrifying stories keep surfacing in the media.
They were offered the possibility of some kind of rehabilitation. It's a nice-sounding phrase, although in practice not everyone is rehabilitated, but many are actually hardened.
The repeat offender Azamat Iskaliev was sentenced for the brutal murder of his girlfriend.
This is footage from a surveillance camera, the main evidence of the particular cruelty in this shocking criminal case. In the frame is Azamat Iskaliev, now convicted for the third time, when
he immediately turned around, and then I took out the small mouse I had pulled out and followed him closely.
Soldiers who went through the war returned to Russian cities without psychological support, without any mechanism that would allow them to adapt to so-called peaceful life. Once home, many chose the environment where the rules were clear and familiar. Organized crime accepts such people without unnecessary questions. Combat experience, discipline, and a lack of fear of violence. However, that's all. This turned out to be a valuable resource. However, apparently this valuable resource is not just for organized crime groups.
It is precisely from these people. We must, in the future, form the country's elite, the true elite of the country, into whose hands we can entrust Russia. We need to form this group out of these people.
As a result, criminal organizations have not only strengthened in recent times, but have also renewed their ranks. In some regions, new groups have emerged that operate noticeably more effectively than the previous ones.
In the Rostov region, a tow truck driver was convicted for brutally murdering an 8-year-old girl. A year ago, he offered a trusting schoolgirl a ride. Sometime later, her body showing signs of violence was found in the forest of Sumpaut.
You left the marks?
So you were strangling her during the rape? So you were already strangling her during the rape?
Yes.
Against the backdrop of the current situation, the Ministry of Internal Affairs is recording a rise in the level of violence, armed attacks, conflicts between organized crime groups, and crimes committed by people with combat experience. However, the current rise in crime in Russia is not just a side effect of the war, it is the result of a specific decision to send to the front people whom society once tried to isolate.
From the very beginning, we raised the issue with the administration that you can't just put up posters about the murder in public. It's a small town. People remember this killing. We all lived here back then. We were afraid to even go outside.
Judging by the trends, the rate of crime growth is unlikely to decrease. Those who have returned have no tools for peaceful living. The state has no effective support programs. The irony is that all these processes seem remarkably predictable.
That's all for today. Thank you for watching. Strength to the Ukrainian defenders, both men and women. Glory to Ukraine. Subscribe, like, comment, and share. See you next time.